Here to talk more about it is the director of AFPI, Center for Law and Justice, Scott Erickson. Scott, thank you for being here. Good to see you.
It's good to see you as well. Thanks for having me.
I mean, we see the violent crime exploding. Several factors here. First, the war on law enforcement, defund the police, the general disrespect for law enforcement in this country being propagated by those on the left. You have no cash bail systems, where you have people that are pushing other people in front of subway trains in New York City, and then they're back out on the street before the paperwork's even done. It's out of control, isn't it?
It is out of control, and I think the key that we're missing is accountability, and you touched on this a second ago. When people commit crime after crime after crime and simply get a slap on the wrist at best, that's only going to send a message that they can continue to do that stuff. And so, unfortunately, we see rising crime rates in just about every major city across the country and in the nation as a whole. And I don't see it abating anytime soon until we fundamentally flip the script and start looking at this a little differently.
Yeah, just about every major city in America is having this. And it's going to impact the midterm elections in places like Philadelphia, I do believe. Philadelphia, the crime in Philadelphia, apparently carjacking's a thing again, Scott. I mean, carjacking was gone for years. All of a sudden, it's back. It's in vogue. It's the thing to do, apparently. But murder, forcible rape, violent assaults, they're up all over. In Chicago, well, it just goes without saying what goes on there day in and day out. And yet, the Democrats that have been in control of these cities for decades, they don't have a plan. They show up every couple of years and beg for a vote and support us, and we'll do better, and we've got free checks for everybody. But what about crime? What is their plan?
I don't think they have a plan. Unfortunately, they've doubled down on many of the bad policies of the past, and that's only making things worse. I think you look at Philadelphia, you look at Chicago, you look at New York, and in many of these cities and jurisdictions, you see progressive prosecutors who've been elected in the wake of the defund the police movement that are explicitly running on campaigns to do the exact opposite of what needs to be done to reduce crime. And we're seeing that manifest in higher crime rates. If you look at New York City as a good example, in the first quarter of this year alone, crime rose 44% across all categories from the year before. A big part of that motivator or driving those numbers were repeat offenders. In fact, the NYPD said that they had arrested over 500 criminals who'd committed robberies, burglaries, assault, at least 3 or more times in that period. So you have somebody who commits an extremely violent crime like robbery, which is using force or fear, and they're getting a slap in the wrist, being put back out on the street. And of course, they do it again, get put back out on the street, and they do it again. So, you can't do the same thing over and over and accept a different result. And in this case, when it comes to crime and public safety, what we're seeing are innocent Americans being victimized by repeat offenders.
Yeah, there it is. Repeat offenders. Because weird, Scott, I'm old enough to remember when we held criminals accountable for the crimes committed. I know that is so old-fashioned to actually penalize criminals for being, criminals. Now we blame everybody else, give them a free pass out of jail, and talk about how we can treat them better. It's weird because we treat the criminals as somehow being the victims and the victims being somehow the oppressors or some such nonsense. It is absolutely upside down and backwards. It's insane, isn't it?
Right. Well, of course, it's nuts. And look, the criminal justice system exists explicitly to provide for the safety of law-abiding citizens and the public at large. And when you, as you said, when you start to put the interests of criminal perpetrators ahead of those of victims and innocent Americans, the system doesn't work that way. It's not supposed to work that way. And, again, we see what's happening. I do think that's going to be a big motivator for individuals in the coming midterm elections and in the future, because we're seeing crime, permeate into neighborhoods and communities that may have been insulated from this type of behavior in the past, but because it's become so prolific, it's unfortunately creeping into all areas of our society, and people are taking notice.
Yeah, people are taking notice, and that's why it has become a critical election year issue in a variety of places. But it could be the pivotal point for states like Pennsylvania, and that's really important. Okay, Scott, so how can our viewers connect with AFPI? How can they learn more about what you're doing, how you're getting involved and connecting and taking on these big issues?
Sure. Well, they can text AFPI to 70107. That'll get them access to a lot of information of what we're doing. It'll also give them an opportunity to see if they could win. 2 people can win a trip to Mar-a-Lago for our annual gala in November on the 18th. So that's something worthwhile there. You can also go to americafirstpolicy.com, look at the policy products that we develop, look at our op-eds. We're pumping out a lot of good material right now, trying to help arm the public with the right information to make the right decisions, and same for policymakers. So I would start there.
All right. Greatly appreciate it. Give it to them one more time so they can write it down.
Oh, that's text AFPI to 70107.
Thank you. Scott, really appreciate you being here. You're doing important work, and we appreciate you sharing it with us here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Always.